Hello, everyone. I'm Dijon,
And I'm Aiara.
and welcome to the Cast, the podcast about the art of storytelling and how to use cards in different mediums. Make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see our channel grow, and to click the notification bell so that you're notified when we post. Today we have a guest, Tia Nellie, a coworker of me and Aiara's. Aiara, you basically just become part of this podcast.
Yeah, for real.
You're the third host. But yeah, you want to introduce yourself, Tia?
Hi everyone, I'm Tia Nellie. My friends call me Tia, and I am an actress. I am a graphic designer. I am an all-around creative, and I love to talk.
All right, so we usually start our episodes with what media we're consuming. I'll let Aiara go first, and then you can go after her. Just see what we do in this section.
Let me think. What have I been into lately? Playing Blasphemous for real this time. Like I started it and got into it, and I'm like 1/4 of the way in, but now I'm like buckling down and playing it for real and very much enjoying it. Mass Effect 1 and 2. I'm also been playing that a lot recently. Well, playing in air quotes mostly. Someone is streaming the game to me because I'm lazy and but other than that, not really much. Not really much. I've been super busy lately. Sucks.
Yeah. So so you just talk about any movies, TV shows, books, music you've been reading, or consuming.
Okay, well, can I talk about a play I was consuming?
Sure.
So y'all know I'm assistant stage manager for a play called Don't Bother Me, I Can't Cope. And this play is so crazy because there's so many sounds, colors, and it's about coping the fact that you're Black, how you cope with being Black in a world that's so against you. And I worked on it from since the end of December, and just now I'm finally seeing the different. I'm finally understanding the play, so that's interesting. I've been listening to my 2022 music wraparound playlist a lot, and I'm like, why was I so sad? I thought I had a great year. Why is all this sad music on here? And movies, we're probably gonna talk about this later, but I've seen The Last of Us. I was forced to watch it actually. Oh, you want me to talk more about The Last of Us?
No. We'll talk about The Last of Us later. I'm excited to hear about that.
Okay.
So, media I've been consuming lately, I watched a movie called The Man from U.N.C.L.E. I watched a lot of movies over the last 2 weeks. I've just been in a movie mood. And it's essentially a spy movie similar to like James Bond, heavily inspired by it, starring Henry Cavill and Armie Hammer. It's based off of an old show that was made during like the Cold War, and the show is about like a American and a Russian spy working together. So it was made during the Cold War when Russia and America were feuding at their heaviest, and it was essentially made to try to like say, hey, we should be working together. Obviously, that didn't work. I watched X, but I'll talk about that in more detail later. I watched The Glass Onion for a second time, which is the second Knives Out movie. It's a real good movie. I like it more than the first one. Granted, I watched Glass Onion before I watched the first one, but I just like it's a lot more grandiose. The characters are more cartoony, for lack of a better word. I just like the over top nature of the second movie. I'm excited to see more. I finished season 3 of Star Wars Rebels, an animated Star Wars show that aired on Disney XD years ago. I've got one season left before I finish it. I don't know. It's been hard for me to get through it. There's something about it to where there's too many filler episodes that are about stuff that I don't care about. So I don't feel like watching them. And I just want to get to the good stuff, but I'm also not the type of person who wants to skip episodes on my first time watching something. So I kind of just have to force myself to get through it sometimes. Been rewatching Ben 10. Great show. That cartoon's great. If you've never seen Ben 10 or haven't seen it in a long time, trust me, it holds up. It's real good. I watched the Ben 10K episode, which is like a future Ben 10 where he has like 10,000 aliens. It's a good episode.
Wow.
Also been watching Superman the anime series and Batman the anime series. 2 fantastic superhero cartoons. those are definitely good starting points for anyone who wants to get interested in those characters. I've also been watching Batman Beyond, which is essentially a sequel series to Batman the Animated Series that takes place like in 20 years in the future or something like that. Batman is like an old man, and a new kid takes up the mantle that he's training. In terms of video games, I've been playing Dead Island with my youngest brother. In anticipation for the second Dead Island, we're playing co-op and going through this the story mode. I'm kind of just mainlining it, not doing any side quests. I'm just trying to get it over with. Dead Space Hi-Fi Rush. I'll talk more about those games later at the end of the episode. Okay, it is Black History Month. We're recording this on February 7th, and
Woohoo!
yeah, we're definitely going to talk about some Black stuff, specifically Black Panther, but we'll get there. We're going to start off with animation. I've also been watching Batman the Brave and the Bold. Unfortunately, though, it was Batman the Brave and the Bold, as well as Justice League the Anime Series and Justice League Unlimited, are being removed or were removed from HBO Max. One of the mini cartoons that are just getting axed by HBO. And to like a Batman, like if they're axing Batman cartoons, you know it's a problem. Because that's like DC's biggest moneymaker. Batman prints money. So yeah. There's an episode with a villain called the Music Meister where he like mind controls people through singing, and he's played by Neil Patrick Harris, and I forgot how good that episode was. That episode was so good. It's probably my favorite episode of the entire series. I discovered that the episode was actually nominated for an Emmy, which makes sense because it's a real good episode.
What? That's because Neil Patrick Harris was in it. I love me some Neil. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
I'll be real with you. I did not know he could sing.
Well, I knew about him because of How I Met Your Mother.
Yeah,
that's
same.
like, a sitcom. But they sing that. They have little musical numbers. Yeah,
I used to watch that a lot. And I hadn't seen it in a long time, so I had no idea that he could sing. I was like, wow. Also, was it Grey Delisle, who's probably most famous for voicing Azula in Avatar: The Last Airbender, voices Black Canary, and she can sing real good too.
Oh like, yeah,
Grey Delisle is incredible.
Her range is fantastic. She's in Bayonetta too, believe it or not.
Yeah, she's in a lot. Grey Delisle is an amazing singer. I've been watching The Legend of Vox Machina. Speaking of Grey Delisle, because she voices the character in that show. The second season is firing on all cylinders.
For real. No spoilers because I've only seen the first episode, but man.
Yeah, I'm not going to spoil it, but they release 3 episodes a week, which is like, for me, I feel like it's the perfect medium between what Netflix and HBO does, where HBO releases 1 episode every week and Netflix, tends to release whole seasons. I feel like that's the perfect medium to get people to keep talking about the show every week and keep engagement up while at the same time giving you a lot of episodes to watch all at once. Yeah, just the story and the animation are a step up from the last season. Like the last season was you really getting to know all these characters, and then the latter half of the first season was really focusing on one character and his story. And this season is more focused on all the characters and getting multiple characters' backstories at the same time. Mostly 3 characters in particular, Vex and Vax as well as Grog. But yeah, it's good. But we're also getting bits and pieces of like Scanlan and I forget her name, the one that Ashley Johnson voices, the short lady. I can't remember her name, but yes, it's a good show. I would definitely suggest it. Arcane also did the same thing with the 3 episodes a week. Yeah. Well, I was about to say something, but that would be a spoiler, so I'll move on. The woman who voices Korra in Avatar: The Last Airbender voices a character in the show. I'll leave it at that. It's Trigun Stampede. So Aiara, last time I forgot to let you talk about what you thought about the show overall. Have you watched any more episodes since the last time we talked?
I have not. I've been so busy. But I can talk about what I have seen. So far, I'm loving it. Studio Orange, I had faith in them from the beginning. Like I'm one of those people who, when I watch anime, like CGI doesn't bother me, even if it's bad. Like I'll laugh at it.
I mean, bad CGI bothers me, but CGI in general doesn't bother me.
Yeah, it's like bad CGI doesn't bother me, but that's not to say that Trigun CGI is bad at all. It's fantastic. But then again, it's Studio Orange. Like, what else could you expect from them? I'm not sure how I'm feeling about how they're pacing out the anime and like the replacements they're making, but I'm gonna let them cook. I feel like they're setting it up for something that is beyond my sight right now. So I don't know. Studio Orange might have something in mind. So I trust them.
Yeah, man. Every episode gets better. Without spoiling it, episode 5 was incredibly emotional for Vash and showed the kind of dichotomy between him and Wolfwood, and where Wolfwood is willing to go to extremes that Vash isn't or can't bring himself to do. And at the end, I literally exclaimed out loud, "This show is amazing!" Like, I'm like, they're doing a good job with the changes they're making so far. It still feels like they're definitely making things move faster, and I feel like that's why they made story changes, to just get through it quicker. And I'm still not a big fan of that, but so far they haven't let me down yet. So, like you said, I'm gonna let them cook. Like you said, art direction, animation is incredible. I never didn't have faith in the fact that Studio Orange was going to make it look pretty, even though I felt like it was a weird decision to do this on already well-known anime that was animated in 2D before. Hey, it worked out in the end, and I'm excited to see Studio Orange work on more, make more 3D anime out of anime specifically that doesn't have like anthropomorphic animals in it, because that one makes sense to do in 3D because they have snouts and all that, and that's hard to do in 2D. But regular people, but anime people with like flat faces is something you wouldn't have thought about them doing in 3D, but they do wonderfully, and they're really good with facial expressions and making those expressions still look like they would if they were 2D. It's really
I think a big part of that is like the experience from working with Hoseki no Kuni, because it's like that having to make the rocks expressive. They're not actual rocks, but they're like humanoid, but still having to like,
it's like Steven Universe.
Yeah, exactly. It's like having to do that in a 3D medium. It's like they have that experience. So that's why like I'm so excited to see that the Trigun remake is good. But also why I had faith in it, because Hoseki no Kuni was good. They did a good job. Season 2 when?
Yeah, but to end this off, the original English dub voice for Vash, Johnny Young Bosch, who's also voices Ichigo and Bleach and Lelouch, and I'm forgetting the name of that anime with the psychic person.
Code Geass.
Yeah, Code Geass. He returns, and it is glorious, and makes me want to rewatch every episode in English because he is so good. Shout out to Johnny Young Bosch. He also played the second Black Ranger in Power Rangers.
And Jonathan Joestar in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
That he did. Because I only watched the first season dubbed. After that, I watched everything subbed.
I don't blame you.
Dub, he's great, but the dub in that show is not great.
Awful.
Okay, move on to Puss in Boots. Tia, you've seen it. What do you think about Puss in Boots: The Last Wish?
Okay, so I just want to start out with, I think it's funny about how on Twitter somebody will tweet, "I'm about to go see Puss in Boots, see what all the hype is about," and then the next tweet be like, "Oh my freaking goodness, it was so amazing!" And that was kind of me, because my sister was great. Like, she couldn't stop talking about it when she saw it. I was like, "Oh my god!" She was like, "You gotta see it with me. You gotta see it with me." And I was like, "Bro, this don't live up to the hype. Like, I'm really mad." So we watched it together, and I was like, "This is so funny." And it's just so interesting how kid shows evolved through the years, because they was cussing in it, and it was not for just children. Most of the theater, if the theater was sold out, 9 times out of 10, it was between the ages of 14 and 25. It was not.
Yeah,
many.
but this is also a spinoff of Shrek, which came out in the early 2000s and did the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. True.
Makes sense.
I didn't expect me to enjoy the plot of Puss in Boots so much, especially because the first movie for Puss in Boots wasn't that good. And, sequels are never, great. And I didn't even know, because I forgot that Puss in Boots had their own spin-off movie before this one.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I saw bits and pieces of the first movie, but I barely remember anything. But the second movie, fantastic. It really took off. It does a similar art style that we were just speaking about with Trigun, the 3D models with 2D textures and effects that, Spider-Verse has really made super famous, and then Arcane did it. And then a previous movie that was made by DreamWorks, Bad Guys, also does that art style to an even more extreme than Puss in Boots does. But yeah, it was a really fun story about the inevitability of death in its many forms. Despite it being framed around his reckless antics leading to him using up 8 of his lives, I kind of viewed it more through the lens of growing old. Because Puss in Boots is getting old, and he needs to, calm down and stop trying to be Puss in Boots, Uh, yeah, it was real good. I liked it a lot. I'm excited to see because they definitely teased Shrek 5 at the very end.
But yeah,
I'm excited to see what that will look like because I feel like they're definitely gonna stick with this art style. So I'm excited to see like Donkey and Shrek and Fiona in this art style.
I'm excited to see how they're gonna fit in Perito into Shrek 3, Shrek 5.
yeah.
How is Perito? I wonder how the dynamic is gonna be. I think I saw something on Twitter where somebody said Eddie Murphy was like, if Puss in Boots get a spinoff, Donkey should get a spinoff because Donkey is way more funny than Puss in Boots. What do y'all think?
Donkey's great and all, but I don't know if I want to watch a solo Donkey movie.
Yeah, me neither. Like the only thing that makes Donkey funny, IMO, is like the way he foils off of other characters. If it's like, you know how when they Jimmy Neutron, when they gave Sheen his own spinoff and it wasn't funny,
Yeah.
It'd be that exact same thing. Like,
yeah, there are some characters that just they exist to bounce off of other characters, and you can't really put them around. I'm sure they could make something decent, but it's not. It wouldn't be something that when I see it, I would go, I want to go see that. Like, no, not really.
no Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, that's for sure.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, it's literally just Antonio Banderas playing Zorro again, but as a cat. So
For real?
that has legs, but Donkey, I don't really feel like has legs outside of Shrek.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But any thoughts on the bad guys before we move on? Because I know you've seen it too.
Yeah, I've seen it twice actually. I'm trying to remember. I've seen it, and then I get bits and pieces because my sister's obsessed with rewatching movies. So, wait, what was your question? It was just have I seen it?
Yeah, just like what did you think about it?
I thought it was great. I think that Bad Guys is a great example of animation is not just for children, that is for all ages, especially when it has a good moral. I thought it was funny. I could watch it again. Very entertaining. And I don't watch many movies again. So, yeah.
Yeah, just the industry in general just needs to respect animation more. It's not a genre for children. It's a medium through which you can tell any story. And there are plenty of adult animated films that children should not be watching at all. Right. And more of them should be made. We should be making more adult animation because animation is for everyone. It's not just for kids.
And then on that note, more good adult animation. Like a lot of, from my experience, it's like a lot of adult animated movies. It's like the same jokes. It's like, oh, sex, and it's like, no, give us more like adult animation, adult oriented animation movies, but with like the plot lines, like these fantastical plot lines that animation for children has, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. Like for sure, what makes these things adult usually is the fact that they interject. Like what pushes that rating up is violence and sex and drugs and stuff like that. Like obviously that is a part of making the rating go up, but in terms of story, you can still tell a similar story that's being told to the children, just with adult themes connected to it, and through the lens of an adult person's life. So yeah. Moving on to comics. You've been reading anything lately, Aiara? It doesn't just have to be comics, just books in general. Either you've been reading anything?
Let me think. I've been meaning to start. I forgot which comic it was, but you recommended to me last time. I've been meaning to start that. I'm trying to track down a place to read it at. And other general books, I read Verity by Colleen Hoover. Loved that book. I know that not a lot of people are fans of Colleen Hoover, and I understand why, but I loved Verity just because of how crazy it was. Like, was it a good book? Debatable. Was it an entertaining book? Absolutely.
Yeah, what book did I recommend?
I'm trying to remember. It was an Aquaman comic. I know that much.
Oh, it was Aquaman Andromeda.
Yes. Thank you for reminding me. I'm going to check that out.
Yeah, it's real short. I think it's only like 2 or 3 issues or something like that. So I've been reading Trigun because I've been watching the show, and I've also been rereading Trigun Maximum. I only read a couple chapters. Introduced a character that I'm excited to see in an anime remake. There's a Naruto spin-off comic called Sasuke Story that's adapted from a light novel, and of course it focuses on Sasuke as he infiltrates a prison in search of a cure for an illness that Naruto has. And the prison is located in a country outside of the lands of fire, wind, water, and earth and lightning that we're used to seeing in the show. something that I've been wanting them to explore for a while, because it's been hinted at in the original series that the Earth is bigger than just those countries that I just listed, and now that's been confirmed. And yeah, and this comic involves a lot more espionage than Naruto does. It's usually just traditional shonen action stuff, but this one has a lot of like actual stealth, and infiltrating. There are also dinosaurs, which they call them dragons because they don't really know what they are. And I won't go too far into what their importance is to the story, but it's interesting. Lastly, Sakura shows up to help Sasuke on his mission, and for the first time, we actually get to see them behave like a married couple and actually see their relationship in a way that makes sense, because their relationship never made sense. He treated her like trash, and then suddenly they were married. Like, she was literally, it was just the usual shonen, the girl lusting after the bad boy, and he treats her horribly, and then somehow at the end, without any explanation, without showing how they grew together and how they actually grew to actually fall in love, they just end up together. And that's why I think Boruto's stupid. I think Boruto should never have existed. A sequel series to Naruto should have taken place in between that huge, like, 12-year time period or whatever, between after Naruto ended and when Boruto was born. I want to see what all those characters, minus Naruto, because we had a whole series about him, were up to outside, like, after the events of the end of the series, without spoiling anything. But I would have liked to see a lot of those characters, those side characters, but the more important side characters, and what their lives were like in between all of this. And one of those things should have been seeing Sakura and Sasuke. Like, it would have been reasonable if we actually saw them grow closer and actually get to the point of actually forming a healthy relationship. But we didn't see that. So when we just see that they're together, it's just like, why? This makes no sense.
What was the point? Yeah.
I want to read this just to join in on the hate, because
I mean, you should. That's actually a good. Is it a good anime to start off with? Because the problem is Naruto's old at this point.
Yeah.
And older anime have really slow pacing because they're attempting to let the comic book that they're pulling from, like, get ahead of them, not catch up, like, get ahead of them, so that they actually have story, so that they have stuff to adapt. And because of that, they stretch like storylines out for a very long time when they don't need to be that long. And
like JoJo the Bizarre. Wait, was it JoJo the Bizarre Adventure?
No,
JoJo is just like that.
No, JoJo doesn't stretch out the plot from the comic. That's just how the story is.
Yes, it's just like that.
I would not say it's just like that. I would say it's very different, because JoJo started airing in like 2012 and has a lot of modern anime stoppings where they don't do filler. Like, you will just have to wait 3 years for the next season. They aren't going to do filler. Naruto has a lot of filler and likes to stretch the content from the manga out, whereas JoJo is already just a very drawn out show.
It's like, you get it, and that's it.
That's the one with them 1,000 mangas, right?
Yeah. There's 8 parts. 9 is on its way.
In like 2 years.
Yep. If that.
I thought the creator of that was gonna be is really sick on his deathbed.
No, that's Hunter x Hunter.
That's a lot of that is a lot of mangaka, unfortunately.
Yeah.
The creator of Hunter x Hunter is not doing so well. He supposedly, he has started drawing again, but supposedly eventually he might let his wife, who coincidentally is the woman responsible for drawing and writing Sailor Moon, he might have her draw it for him, but we'll see. That would be very interesting. But yeah, Hirohiko Araki is actually the reason this podcast exists. Like, legit. During the beginning of the pandemic, I started watching JoJo. I had always heard the music, and one day I was just listening to Golden Wind over and over again. I was like, you know what? I'm finally gonna watch JoJo. It's on Hulu. So I watched JoJo, and I eventually caught all the way up after like a year or so, and it inspired me. I bought his book about writing manga. I read a bunch of articles and watched videos about him and his style and how he incorporates fashion design into his character designs a lot, and how he's big into that. And he's had a lot of collabs with like big fashion brands.
Rohan and Gucci comes to mind specifically. I actually read that spinoff, and it's surprisingly good. Hirohiko
Araki's great. JoJo's a good anime. It's when anime is already considered weird. So when somebody tells you that this anime is particularly weird, they're not lying.
Yeah.
JoJo is strange. It is bizarre. But
before we move on from comics, I remembered something else I was reading. So I found out recently through this huge Twitter thread that Square Enix collabed with DC of all people, Detective Comics, to make an adaptation in air quotes for the first Nier game, Nier Replicant. And I read. There's only 3 of them, but I read them, and they're surprisingly good.
That's weird because maybe they don't exist anymore. But I have a book right beside me, Soul Eater, that's published by Square Enix, so they have their own publishing company. Why would they? I wonder why they would go through DC.
I think it mostly was for the artist, Ricardo Sanchez.
Oh, okay. They were
Yeah.
scouting specific artists. Yeah, because some of them are signed to like Marvel or DC and can't go anywhere else for a long time.
Yeah, because it's published by Square Enix, and I can send you the link to that if you're interested. But yeah, it was really interesting to read, to see like a JRPG adapted in like that Western comic style. And they did a good job of it. I'm not even gonna lie, they did a good job.
Funny enough, while we're still on comics, I do have a couple of comics to talk about, but that'll be brief. I would love to see more, well, not more, but just some Japanese artists and writers write, maybe like a mini series, like 6 issues of a American comic. Like I think that the artist who draws One Punch Man would make an amazing Spider-Man comic. But I also think that dang, what was that? The dude who makes My Hero. I couldn't remember the name of My Hero for a second. He would also make a really good Spider-Man comic. Because Spider-Man's like his favorite superhero or something like that. So I would love to see more mangaka just come and make just a mini series for an American comic. That would be fun. But they're already swamped with their own comics. So who knows? Yeah, so the last couple of comics I have, DC Power is a like Black History Month celebration comic that's actually really good. I would definitely suggest reading it. I'm not sure. Sometimes they have comics for free on their website or their app, DC Infinite. I'm not sure if this is one. Maybe it is. If it is, you guys should check it out. But the story, it's a bunch of like short stories about different characters. The first one is about Amazing Man, which is a character I always heard about, but reading this, I was like, oh, Amazing Man is actually really cool. He essentially has powers similar to like Kevin 11 from Ben 10, where he touches things and can absorb it and make his skin that material. Like if he touches metal, his skin will turn to metal. The second one was about Black Lightning. Everybody knows who Black Lightning is. We need more Black Lightning media. Black Lightning needs a movie. Then there was one about Nubia and Bumblebee. Anybody who's watched Teen Titans cartoon know who Bumblebee is. She was actually the second Black superhero in DC Comics after Vixen, which I've also been reading that, but I haven't read enough of it to talk about it. Nubia was Black Wonder Woman. Now she's just grown into her own character. She's no longer just like considered Black Wonder Woman. She's just Nubia, and she's currently Queen of the Amazons. And her comics are incredible. If you're looking for a Black woman character in DC to get into, Nubia is the character. She has 3 series or 2 series and like a couple one shots, but Nubia and the Amazons, the first one, and then Nubia, Queen of the Amazons, is the second one. They're both 6 issues, so it was like 12 issues in total, like 19 pages each, maybe 20, 21. So yeah, Green Lantern, John Stewart, another famous character. I know who that is. Aquaman and Kid Flash. Aqualad, the black one, he's Aquaman now because it's been years. And Kid Flash, there's a black Kid Flash if you didn't know. Cyborg, then Vixen, who I was just talking about, and Batwing. Batwing is the son of Lucius Fox, the dude that makes all of Batman's technology. He made essentially his own Iron Man suit. And then there's a Black Batman as well. And Far Sector is about one of the many Green Lanterns, Jo Mullion, who's a black woman. But yeah, it's real good. DC Power was great. I would definitely suggest people checking it out. Sword of Azrael. So there's a character who was created in the 90s. Not in the 90s. I think he might have been created in the 80s, but his most famous story came from the 90s. And Bane, I forget the name of the story, but it's the story that introduced Bane. His name is John Polideli, aka Azrael. He's a man was programmed by an ancient religious order to become their assassin, and they kind of convinced him that he was the angel of death, Azrael. And in the comic, he struggles with trying to purge that part of his mind that believes he's God's flaming sword, while also trying to destroy the remnants of the people who did it to him. So yeah, it's a very fun story so far. The artist is I think this is his first official comic with DC, but he's been drawing fan comics for like Marvel and DC characters for a long time, and it's dope to see him come up like this. His art is amazing. Wow. I can't remember his name right now, but I'll put it up on the screen and add it. Okay, moving on to TV and film. Before we get to like The Last of Us and Black Panther, I'm going to talk about some stuff that I didn't get a chance to mention last time. But starting with Harley Quinn and Joker Sound Mind. It's an audio drama on Spotify. You guys listen to any audio dramas?
Japanese ones, yes. Like the Persona audio CDs, but other than that, not really.
Plays. Audio plays.
Yeah, I feel like you would find this interesting too. It's really good. It's called Harley Quinn and Joker Sound Mind. And it's essentially about the origin of Harley Quinn and how she became Harley Quinn. And how she started off as a psychiatrist in Arkham Asylum and, you know, eventually joined the Joker and all that. It's real good. It was real fun. Christina Ricci, who plays Wednesday in the 90s Addams Family films, is voicing Harley Quinn. And she's real good. She's real good as Harley Quinn. Yeah, it's a great audio drama. Running Up That Hill. So last time we talked about Strange Things, I meant to mention how I was obsessed with Running Up That Hill. And I kept listening to it over and over again. And since then, I haven't been listening to it as much. It doesn't pop in my head as often, mostly because of that Batman musical episode. And I just have all those songs stuck in my head now. But sometimes a piece of music will play in something that will just get stuck in your mind forever. And it'll never go away. And I just became obsessed with that song. You guys have any music you heard in like a show or a movie that you just ended up listening to over and over again?
Euphoria
has a lot of good music.
Are on repeat.
For me, it's that one theme from Hereditary, despite me never having watched Hereditary. You know which one I'm talking about. The one that's like, yeah, you know which one. I don't know why that gets stuck in my head so often. It's not even really like anything special, but it just, I think about it from time to time. That and the song from Nope, when they did the run, and I can't say anything more than that because it's spoilers, but yeah, that song also gets stuck in my head a lot.
Yeah. Have you seen Nope, Tia?
Yes, I have, and I don't like it.
Wow, really? Okay.
Wow.
Well, we got to talk about that.
Strong opinions.
You don't like Nope? Why don't you like Nope?
I think, okay, I hate to be that guy, but I don't really hate it that much. It's overhyped because I think it was a cool movie, but honestly, if I knew what it was about for real, I would not have went into the theaters to go see that. I would have waited until it was free. It was not scary. I don't even know how it was a horror. I thought the premise was kind of okay. First of all, let's talk about that monkey scene. That monkey scene when the monkey killed like the people or whatever, hurt them really bad. That was the dumbest scene ever. It was a great scene, don't get me wrong. But why was it in the movie? This is what I call the author didn't kill their baby. It was a beautiful moment and it was great cinema, but it didn't fit. The author needed to kill his baby, kill this beautiful moment because it didn't fit in and they just confused the audience. I remember looking at reviews for hours on TikTok and stuff because to see people agree with me because I was like, why was that in there? It was pissing me off. And I was
so
like,
I think the problem with this and why it's so diverse is one, first and foremost, it was never advertised as a horror movie. People just assumed that it was going to be a horror movie. And none of his movies have really been horror movies. They're all been thrillers with elements of like things that are meant to scare you. Even though Nope wasn't a horror movie, there were definitely parts that generally were terrifying. But none of his movies are necessarily meant to be horror, except for maybe Get Out. I feel like that was the most horror-like. And I guess you know what? I take that back. Us and Get Out were definitely horror. There was like Us had slasher elements. Get Out was definitely scary if you're a black person. But for the most part, they're not meant to be super straight horror. They're meant to be lean more on the thriller side. And Nope wasn't like he never said it was a horror movie. People just assumed that because of his last two movies. But also, it's a matter of people because they're used to thinking so hard about his movies, they overthink it and they ignore the message that's right in their face. The whole movie was about spectacle and about what people will do to be seen on the internet, as well as the exploitation of animals, especially in film. And was it the okay? Spoiler alert, first and foremost, because we're definitely about to get deep into spoilers about Nope.
Oh yeah.
First and foremost, Jean Jacket was the way Jean Jacket relates to Gordy was that Jean Jacket was an animal that they were literally trying to record so that they could get famous and make money off of it. And Gordy was another animal that was being used and exploited by these people, a wild animal that shouldn't be on a stage, that has the strength to rip people's arms off, being used for this sitcom.
And then Gordy was also a callback to the Travis the Chimp incident. I don't know if you've heard about that, Tia, but it was like
I did.
Yeah, it was supposed to be like a callback to that, but then also that idea of like what happens when you turn an animal or anybody really into a spectacle.
Yeah, Steven Yeun's character, who was the little Asian kid on the show, he didn't really deal with his trauma. He was just kind of trying to recapture the exact same experience of feeling like he had that close connection with the monkey because it didn't kill him, with that giant alien being that was going around murdering people.
Like,
and it was the same thing with the horses. Like, they talk about the horses and how people, you don't look the horse in the eyes, and people aren't listening to this man who's like telling them to like respect this wild animal that we've tamed and are bringing here for you to use in your movie. And it was just about like respecting animals as well as exploitation of animals, as well as people going to extremes to become famous, essentially.
Yeah, and then especially with like the Haywoods, like there was also like, again, that because every Jordan Peele movie has that like I don't want to say like element of Black trauma, but there's definitely an element of Black trauma in Nope, and it's like how far like I don't know. I just saw like a lot of the stuff that happened in Nope like really resonated with me, especially as like a Black creative. It's like how far we have to go to be respected,
Mm-hmm.
It's like how much we have to do, and like how we're always the ones putting our bodies on the line when other creatives don't have to work that hard, So it's like we're exploiting ourselves in order to serve like an industry that doesn't really care about us.
Yeah, that was definitely an element of that, of how like they were literally the first people to use horses in film, and they're like some of the best at it, but they aren't being used as much as they should.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I take it back. I don't hate it. That was an over-exaggeration. I enjoyed the movie, but I just thought that some parts, like, I agree. Of course, the commentary on using animals as a way, like, overusing animals was there. But Gordy made no sense to be in this film because it hinted to too many other things. Unless it was planning to be a spinoff for the movie, it just made no sense. It didn't fit in the film. It threw audience members off. It left the audience confused because they thinking it's going to go one way instead of the other. Even if they wasn't overanalyzing, like say if Jordan Peele didn't make this movie, that aspect would still throw the audience off because why was it there? I know it's supposed to add to the theme, but then the Asian character, like it was something that it seemed like something was supposed to happen with that. And I'm like, when is this monkey going to come back into it? We just had this long scene for no reason.
Jean Jacket was the monkey coming back.
Yeah.
And murdering him. That's where it came back.
Where
he thought he could tame the animal again, and he couldn't, and he just died.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I mean,
he was literally trying to rouse the animal once again, and this time he didn't survive.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I get why people were like didn't like it and were confused about certain things about it. But yeah, I just felt like people were overanalyzing it, or just like the message was completely going over their head.
Right. Like Logan Paul, that watching people tear him up on Twitter was hilarious.
Oh yeah, he was confused about the one character that was very blatantly inspired by him, which was the dude on a motorcycle who was trying to like film the alien and
from TMZ.
Yeah,
that was too obvious. He was was it trolling? He was trolling. He knew that it was about him.
No, he was dead serious, I think.
No, he's just an idiot.
Yeah.
What did he say?
I forgot.
He was like,
he made a whole thread.
Yeah, it was like, Nope was a bad movie. It didn't make sense. This is why. And it's like,
yeah. But let's get through these next couple of things so we can get the last of us Black Panther. So I watched The Menu. It was wild. It was a very wild movie. I truly can't even describe it without spoiling it. So I'll just say it's a thriller that criticizes both the way we consume and create art through the lens of an exclusive restaurant owned by a famed chef that's like on like an island a couple like away from the mainland, and it gets real weird. It touches especially on like pretentiousness and creating and consuming art, and it's amazing film, and it's honestly better to go in almost completely blind. Maybe check out a trailer, because I'd seen some. You might have seen trailers for this when you went to go see everything everywhere all at once. Honestly,
what movie was it? The Menu?
Yeah, The Menu.
Yeah, I haven't seen trailers up for it, but I've heard about it. One of this cooking channel I watched was making food from The Menu, and everybody was acting like it was a big deal. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. But
yeah, it's on HBO Max, so I would definitely suggest checking it out. It's no longer. I don't even think it reaches 2 hours. So I like movies that are like an hour 40, hour 30, perfection. Especially, this isn't a horror movie. The next movie I'm talking about is a horror movie, and it's around like an hour 40 minutes. And I love horror movies that are only like an hour 30 minutes, because you don't need to be 2 hours. Come on now, just get in, get out.
Yeah. For real.
So X is a horror slasher set in 1979, where a group of people go to a farmstead to film porn, but without informing the owners that that's what they're going to do, and that causes problems. Its core themes are about the fear of getting older and becoming less sexually desirable as a result, and it stars a lot of people, but not a lot. More like it's probably like 10 people. But the two biggest ones that I feel like you guys will recognize are Jenna Ortega, who plays Wednesday Addams, and Kid Cudi plays one of the characters.
Huh.
He plays like the main male porn star. Like this is like 1979. This is like when the home video industry was booming and porn was like becoming super popular. Like this is an era that was considered the golden age of porn. So, black guy. Anyway, it has big Texas Chainsaw Massacre energy, and it's purposeful. And you guys ever seen the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
I've seen parts of it.
It's a good movie.
I don't do scary movies.
Oh, really? Okay, that's unfortunate. Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a good movie.
I will watch it though.
It definitely, the director purposely pulled from Texas Chainsaw Massacre in creating this. There are a lot of shots that are like identical to shots from the movie. And everything about it is very similar. A group of people in a van going off to this remote farmhouse. It's very similar. But this film I feel like does what every slasher should, which is make the characters interesting rather than like shallow caricatures. I love slashers. The problem is I don't care about the characters most of the time. But if you make me care about the characters, it will elevate the story so much further. Either you make me like the characters a lot, so I don't want them to die, or you make me hate them, so I really want them to die. So it's satisfying either way. So what I discovered after finishing the film and trying to like look up what people thought about it, I learned there's a prequel that came out the same year that it came out. It came out last year, like early last year in like May or something like that. And then in September, a sequel came out. Well, not a sequel, a prequel. That I can't name without spoiling X, which you should definitely check out. Even though both of you aren't really big on horror.
I'll check it out. I mean, it sounds interesting because I like Texas Chainsaw Massacre despite not being a horror movie person.
Yeah, it takes place a number of years before the first film, and it's a very interesting premise for a prequel that I'm excited to watch. And it's getting a sequel that I also can't name without spoiling it, because both names of the prequel and the sequel are the names of characters from X, and I can't spoil it without saying who survives, who dies, or whatever. So yeah, it's a good movie. Okay, moving on to The Last of Us on HBO, which has been renewed for a second season, which is fantastic. The Last of Us Part 2 is, I like it more than the first one, so I'm excited to see that story adapted for TV, and I feel like it'll do better and won't be as divisive on TV as it was in game, even though that game's good. Yeah, so what have you thought, Tia, on the show? Have you seen it out yet?
I'm working on it. Okay. I'm one of those people that can only watch one thing at a time.
Okay, well, without spoiling it, what do you think, Tia?
I won't spoil it. I have seen the first episode because that was all that was out when I first watched it. And I thought it was good. I mean, I did get spoiled when I was going into it because my friend who I was watching it with told me, "Oh, I can't spoil it. So I can't even tell you, Aiara."
Oh, dang.
But I did it. The first episode surprised me who was the main character and who wasn't, because I never played the game. I just knew that the game was so popular that they made a show out of it. And I was like, wow, this is very intriguing. And I was interested in who the new main character was.
Did they spoil you about something from the end of the first game?
No, just that episode, because the episode made it seem like this one girl was gonna be the main character, but it was really,
I know what you're talking about. So
Mhm.
only 2 games have ever made me cry, and it was the beginning of the Last of Us Part 1 at the part that you're talking about. And the second game that made me cry was the end of The Last of Us Part 2. The only games that make me cry were the Last of Us video games because they are sad. These games are sad. But yeah, that prologue gets me every time. Every single time. But yeah, it's a real good show. Episode 4, not 4, 3, really solidified this show as the best live action video game adaptation of all time. Episode 3 is so good. Like, I can say this without spoiling it, but it's about gay love. I'll just leave it at that. It's real good. It heavily expands on characters that were in the original game, one of which you didn't really get to see and one you spent a lot of time with. And it's so good. So Neil Druckmann, in one of the behind the scenes videos that they do after the credits, said that my philosophy on this show has always been, when should we deviate and when should we come back? If it's kind of the same or worse, we stay where the game is. If it's better, we deviate. And that is just every creator of a live action adaptation of anything. That is how they should be thinking. Neil Druckmann directed the second episode, but he also is the creator, writer, executive producer, and the creative director of the games. So he's he's like the foremost
he knows his stuff.
Expert on this series. And that's how every video game adaptation should be. But to do that, you need the person who you're working with, the people that you're working with. They have to be fans, but also they have to recognize, they have to be big enough fans to where they think that what they're adapting is the best thing ever as it is. So they're less likely to feel like any change that they make is better than the original. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, they can't think that any change they make is obviously going to be better than the original because the original sucks. Like, they have to genuinely like the original and recognize that there are things in the original that if they change, people won't like it and it won't be considered better. So you just have to copy that verbatim and make changes only when it's necessary. Or rather than making changes, you expand things and add more context.
Right.
And that's what The Last of Us is doing. And that's what I want to see from other video game adaptations. And I think most video game adaptations would do better off being a show, whether it's animated or live action, because I think a lot of them would do better being animated. But most of them would do better being a show than movie. Did you say something to you?
I was just listening.
But yeah, it's real good. My number one video game I want to see adapted into live action is Metal Gear Solid. And yeah, I want them to handle it like this. It would be real good. And I definitely want it to be a show. In Saturday news, Annie Wershing, who played Tess in the video games, passed away from cancer at the age of 45. Yeah, rest in peace to her. She was an amazing actress. So apparently, like they said, we had 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But we need to talk about Black Panther before Tia gets out of here. We have 6 minutes. Okay, we can talk about Black Panther in 6 minutes.
I'll start.
Or maybe we can.
I don't have much to say, but I do want to say I think it's amazing that they have a Black woman as the lead. You know, that along with the Woman King is just so great seeing the non-traditional leads and roles, because in theater and in film, you're told if you're older or if you're dark skinned or if you're a woman, nobody's going to want to see your movie. So I think it's really, I'm sad that, I forget the actor's name.
Chadwick Boseman.
Yes, Chadwick Boseman passed away. But I'm glad that they're honoring his death with the new actress, and I forget her name as well.
Letitia Wright.
Yes, with her. And they did so good. They brought so much money to the box office, and I'm just so proud of them as actors.
It's real good. So initially I wasn't a big fan of them having T'Challa pass on because Chadwick passed. Again, you should definitely say spoiler. It's out on digital now, so you definitely check it out if you can. He was a great person and an amazing Black Panther, but the character has a life beyond the first person to play him in live action. However, I eventually came to the conclusion that not recasting him immediately was definitely the best decision, and it didn't necessarily mean that the character would never come back. It just meant that they were giving people time to grieve and, giving themselves the proper time to cast the right person. But after watching the film, I think that it's clear that they won't be bringing back the original T'Challa. And I'm okay with that. That's fine. Hopefully we, within our lifetime, we get to see, I don't know, a reboot or something happen to where we get to see the original T'Challa come back. But otherwise, I'm fine with the story being the way that it was, especially since it was told so well. And it definitely feels like, rather than bringing T'Challa back somehow, it's definitely going to be that. Wait, you saw it, right? Are you?
I'm not. But...
Oh well, never mind. I don't want to say too much. I'm not gonna say what I was about to say. But Tia, I think you know what I was about to say. What happened at the very end? But they're definitely. It was a good movie. It was a great movie. Okay, now I got to think about how to talk about this. So, Namor is a fantastic villain. So a lot of people are upset that people were shipping Namor and Shuri, but hear me out. Before, so I don't think he's the villain of the movie. I'm not going to spoil who he kills, but he kills people. He kills Wakandans, and before he's there was a long stretch of time before he killed anyone, and before that, Tia, did it not feel a little bit? It felt like there was a little bit of chemistry between them before he went full on evil.
Yes, it did. But I want to say I've seen the movies through peeping in on my nephew and spoilers, so my perspective is biased. But like I said, I hear you out. I feel you from what I've seen.
After he started murdering people, I was like, okay, this isn't gonna work. But before that, he was showing her Tolo Khan, and they had that music playing in the background, and they were swimming around, and I was like, this is beautiful, this is romantic. It felt like he was trying to make her his wife. I was like, man, this is cool. and then he got real evil, and I was like, you know what? Maybe it's not cool.
Maybe it's not.
But people keep pretending there was no chemistry between them, and people are being weird about it. And I'm like, no, there was something there.
He's a villain. They're just mad that he's a villain, and they're just hating. That's what it seems like.
But also, he's more of an anti-hero. He's not I don't feel like he's a full-on villain. He's not a good person.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think he's a full-on villain. He's definitely the antagonist. But, there's a difference between an antagonist and a villain.
Yes.
You can be the antagonist. For example, the villain can be the main character and be the protagonist. Where's that? The good guy could be the villain.
Give me an example of that.
That's a very good question. I can't think of any at the moment, but there are definitely examples like that.
Would that count for bad guys? Because the bad guy was really the villain because he was a thief, the wolf, but he was.
Well,
does that count?
No, because they weren't that bad.
Okay.
Oh man, I can't.
They stole from the.
There are plenty of examples. Death Note.
Yeah.
Death Note is an anime. The main character is a murderer who thinks he's gonna make the world better by murdering bad people, and
allegedly.
The antagonist is a person working with the Japanese equivalent of the FBI to catch the main character who is a murderer. So yeah, that is a good example of the main character is 100% a villain despite being the protagonist, and the antagonist is a good guy despite being the antagonist.
I see. Yeah.
But yeah, also the scene where Shuri first becomes Black Panther and she drops down from the sky is one of the greatest scenes. It's so good. It's so hype. The music that plays, and when M'Baku stands up and they arm wrestle, it's real good. Yeah, but that's about all I really have to say about Black Panther. So
I recommend everyone to see it.
Yeah, I guess this is the end for you, Tia.
See y'all. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So, shout out to Tia. It was great having her. So we're gonna move on to the new DC Cinematic Universe, Gods and Monsters Chapter 1. So James Gunn, I don't know if you've heard, but James Gunn, director of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 and 2 and Volume 3 and the Christmas special, and of the Suicide Squad, the second Suicide Squad film. James Gunn, alongside Peter Safran, who's a producer, is they've announced they become the heads of the co-CEOs of the new DC studios. And they're cleaning the slate. They're wiping everything clean and starting from the beginning. So on January 31st, James Gunn and Peter Safran announced their plan for the first phase of the DCU, titled Chapter 1, Gods and Monsters. And it sounds amazing. So I'm going to go in order of the things they talked about, and, we'll just go from there. So first thing he mentioned was, he honestly started with the less interesting stuff and then got to the more interesting stuff later on. So he started off with Creature Commandos, which will be a 7-episode animated series written by James Gunn, where Amanda Waller creates a Black Ops team out of monstrous prisoners inspired by the Universal monsters. So, like, there's a DC character who's essentially quite literally Frankenstein. And this is based off of a comic of the same name, Frankenstein, and there's some subtitle. But yeah, I'm interested in this. This will be the first of many instances of characters going back and forth between live action and animation. This will be fully animated, but a lot of these characters they're going to try to hire people who will also be able to reprise their roles in live action.
Got you.
Waller is a series about Viola Davis reprising her role as Amanda Waller, working alongside Peacemaker and his team. Have you seen a Peacemaker show or anything about it?
I have not.
It's surprisingly good. When I first heard that they were doing it, I was like, really? Why? And then I watched it. And it was like one of the greatest comic book shows I've ever seen.
Wow.
Yeah, it's real good. I would definitely suggest checking out Peacemaker. Have you seen the Suicide Squad?
Yes, but I don't remember much from it. I just know that I didn't really care for it much.
The newest one?
I think so.
This one's real good. The old one's horrible, but
that's what I'm thinking of. The old one where they the one that everyone made fun of on the internet.
Oh yeah,
that's the one I watched.
No, that was trash. You should definitely check out the Suicide Squad. It's real good. It's much better for some, much better. But long before this announcement video, James Gunn announced that he was writing a Superman movie that would take place in the early days of Superman's career as a superhero. But it has now been given an official title and release date. Superman Legacy will be releasing July 11th, 2025, and will focus on Superman balancing his Kryptonian heritage with his human upbringing. And yeah, sounds like I'm excited to just get a good old-fashioned Superman movie. Because my thing is, I had a discussion with Amir one time where I said something like, I can't remember the context surrounding it, but I said, it's Superman. And in the way that's meant to be, like, when I say that, you're supposed to be like, yeah, of course, it's Superman. That just means something, right? That just saying it's Superman is supposed to mean something because it's Superman. But just saying it's Superman doesn't mean anything anymore. Just saying the name of the first superhero, the blueprint, the man who inspired them all, doesn't mean anything anymore because people don't know who Superman is. People who don't read comic books or watch the cartoons don't truly understand who Superman is and what he stands for anymore. They don't understand that he doesn't stand for truth, justice, and the American way like he did in the 40s back during World War II. They changed that a couple years ago. It's truth, justice, and a better tomorrow, which I love so much better because he's the man of tomorrow. He's a man so powerful that he's seen as a bit of a god to most, but he was raised on Earth in Kansas by farmers. So he has just Southern hospitality. And that's who he is. He's a nice person who just wants to help people. He, in Dawn of Superman, the 1970s film, he often would just say, people are like, who are you? He would just say, I'm a friend. And that's what Superman is. He's a friend to us all.
You can't get more humble beginnings than that.
Exactly. He's just your humble superhero who wants to help people. And people don't understand that anymore. And they need to. And I'm excited to see a movie remind people who Superman is. And show people that Superman isn't boring. I don't know why people think he's boring. They think he's boring because they literally haven't read the comics and they're just going off of what people say. Okay, second one was Lanterns. A Green Lantern series focused on Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart. It is described as True Detective, but in space. Yeah, so that's another one. Green Lantern, like the entire mythos of Green Lanterns and all that is so cool. And people say it all the time. Green Lanterns by itself could easily sustain its own franchise of films and shows. It's amazing. People say it could be Star Wars, and it's true. Green Lantern could be the Star Wars for DC. you could have serious and movies going along at the same time, focusing on various different Green Lanterns. Because the Green Lantern Corps it's a core. It's full of people and aliens across the universe, and they could just focus on the Earth Green Lanterns if they want, because there's, in my opinion, a little bit too many Earth Green Lanterns. But there's a lot to pull from. Like there was the original Green Lantern, who's not a part of the Green Lantern Corps. His powers are different. But then was Hal Jordan, Jon Stewart, Guy Gardner, Jessica Cruz, Simon Baz, a lot, Kyle Rayner, and they're very diverse. You got Hal Jordan's and Alan Scott. They're just white guys. So is Guy Gardner. Those are the three white guys. Kyle Rayner I think he's mixed. He's like white and Asian, and I forget specifically what country, but I think he might be Filipino. There's also Jessica Cruz, who's Latina. Simon Baz, who's Muslim. I forget what country. I just remember it's the same country that like Mia Khalifa's like family is from. I can't remember the name of that country for some reason.
See, I remembered and then I forgot immediately as soon as I opened my mouth. I can Google it. Hold on.
Why do you randomly know what country Mia Khalifa's from?
Don't worry about it.
That's it's very random information you have.
It's just because I was following the whole drama with her that was going on. I just follow her in general on social media. And also,
look, it's okay. We all know why. It's all right.
Yeah.
We all know.
No better than a man.
But let me just move on though. But the Authority is a team consisting of several characters from DC's Wildstorm imprint. And it features two gay characters that I have been wanting to see and learn more about for a very long time. So now I'm about to really start reading The Authority and Superman and the Authority, which is a comic where he like crosses over with them. That's really fun. Paradise Lost is a show about the home of Wonder Woman, Themyscira, aka Paradise Island. And it's described as Game of Thrones meets Wonder Woman, focusing on the genesis and political intrigue of an island full of women. Now, there's a comic called Paradise Lost that they'll probably be pulling inspiration from, but a comic I hope they pull inspiration from that you might enjoy. It's called Wonder Woman Historia, Part 1 Themyscira, I believe, or Part 1 The Amazons. And it's about the origins of Themyscira and the Amazons, and how something that I feel like people forget, because the Wonder Woman movie, the first one's real good. The second one is okay. I don't hate it as much as most people do. I actually enjoy that second movie. It's a little too long, but for the most part, I liked it. But she is steeped in Greek mythology, and people forget that. And in the first movie, it literally not opens, but at some point, like Ares says, like he destroyed the entire Greek pantheon. They're all gone. They're all dead. And removing that aspect of her character is so stupid, because she has a lot of villains. Like old characters like this, even though not all of their villains are famous, like Batman and Spider-Man's villains, they have a lot of villains that can be reinvented and brought into the modern day and made interesting. But failing that, if you can't make any of her already existing like original character villains interesting, you still have the entire Greek pantheon to fall back on to pull into her stories and make her stories more interesting. But people forget that she's connected to that. In some stories, she's a demigod. She's like the daughter of Zeus, but that's trash. She's usually just made out of clay. She's usually just made out of clay by her mother, Hippolyta, and Zeus like breathes life into it, and he's her father in that sense, which I think is a much more interesting origin.
That's like it's Greek accurate, because I think there is like genuine, like outside of Wonder Woman, there is a myth, like name and all of that, and then like the clay thing is just Greek origin myth 101. So
yeah, and it's just I that story really goes deep into the mythology and focuses on all of the Greek goddesses and how they came together because just they saw how horrible women were be treated in the world, and like petitioned to Zeus, like, you're a god, stop this. And he was just like, let them do what they want. We're not supposed to interfere in man's world. And then they got grouped together and was like, no, we're gonna make this island and for the specific group of women to be safe. It's really good. And I hope they get into that into the show. In this show, I mean. Next, Booster Gold. Everybody's probably heard of him, but Busagula is essentially stolen valor personified. He's from the future where he worked as a janitor in a museum, and he stole technology to travel to the past and become a superhero. And he's a really fun character that people will, like, definitely fall in love with. I feel like he's Deadpool, but less violent, like in terms of how he's a very quippy, very jokey character, but ultimately deep down, he's really sad. So yeah, I feel like people are definitely gonna like this character. And
I love characters.
So you know what? I'm gonna save this one for last because this is my favorite announcement. So I'm going to Swamp Thing. So Swamp Thing is gonna investigate the dark origins of his just his dark origins. I read my notes wrong. But yeah, Swamp Thing is a very fun character. He's more of he leans more into like the horror side most of the time, and this movie definitely is seeming like it's gonna be more horror-ish. There's also Swamp Thing. There's 2 Swamp Thing shows. One of them is like really old from like the 80s or 90s, and there's another one that came out a few years back that's really, really good, like ridiculously good. And it got canceled, unfortunately, because it wasn't making enough money for how much it was, spending. But it was amazing. Swamp Thing is just a really cool character that I can't wait for people to really get to, like, just a mainstream audience really get to learn about and like fall in love with this character because he's really dope. Next up, Batman the Brave and the Bold, which will focus on Batman and his son Damian Wayne, the 5th Robin. And it's based on the Grant Morrison run from the early 2000s. I'm so excited for this. A Batman with a Robin, something we haven't seen since the 90s. And I mean, people are weird. People are so used to watching these live action Batman movies that have come out since, the 90s, not since the 90s, but after the 90s, that they forget that Robin exists and how important Robin is to Batman's character. And all these people are so obsessed with super grounded Batman. I feel like the average audience are so used to grounded Batman that they forget he's a superhero. He's a man dressed in a giant bat suit. We've never seen any of his more interesting villains in live action. We've seen Mr. Freeze, Bane. Well, we've seen Bane twice. We've seen Mr. Freeze once. We've seen Poison Ivy once. And like, we haven't seen any of his more fantastical villains. One that I want to see so bad in live action is Clayface, a giant clay monster that can shapeshift into people. Like, that's a very fun story to tell and could very easily lean into like the horror side, which the original origin of Clayface is actually that he wasn't a clay monster at first. He was just a man who played a monster in a movie, but the movie got a reboot and all of the original cast were brought back except for him, and he was replaced as the monster. And so to get revenge, he murdered all of his castmates in the same way that they died in the original movie.
Oh, wow.
And then eventually he becomes a clay monster. And there's also been several different people that take up the alias of Clayface. A decent amount of them having powers, some of them not having powers. But like, either way, that's an interesting story to tell. And then you also have Man-Bat, who's essentially like Kurt Connors, aka the Lizard from Spider-Man, who he's a scientist who was trying to cure some type of illness using animal DNA. And he tested it on himself, so he became like a were-bat, where like he like sometimes at night would transform into a giant bat. Like, really interesting characters that are just these monsters. Like, that would be really fun to explore, but people forget that those things even exist in Batman. And I'm excited to see that. And this, with Damian Wayne as his son with Talia al Ghul, who is the daughter of Ra's al Ghul, who is a eco-terrorist who constantly revitalizes himself in a magical pit of restoration, essentially the fountain of youth. So again,
I'm sorry, the concept of just like a magical pit of restoration is very funny to me.
It is. It reminds me, it just makes me think of Hades.
Yeah, it's like, oh, don't talk to me, I'm going to go rest in the pit for a little while. Like,
it's funny because he basically says stuff like that.
Oh no, that's crazy.
Ra's al Ghul's great, but also something I hope that they do is that, like, Talia is supposed to be. It varies whether Ra's himself, her father, is Arab or like some sort of European. So, but for the most part, Talia is always Arab because her mother is Arab. So, I think Ra's al Ghul should be Arab, and in a lot of cases, sometimes he is Arab, and I think in this case he should be, and so should Talia. And because of that, Damien should be a mixed kid and should be either played by a mixed kid or just a straight up Arab kid.
Right.
Don't make this, please, for the love of God, don't make Damian a white boy. I beg of you. I beg of you, do not make him a white boy. You already, like, literally every other Robin is already a white boy, and there's one white girl. Like, let Damian be a little mixed boy, please. A little brown, white mixed boy, okay? Let's do that. But yeah, I'm excited. But what I wanted to leave off on, which I'm so excited about, is Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. Based off of a comic written by Tom King and drawn by Billy K. Everly. It will be getting adapted in live action, and I've been dreaming of this day since I finished reading it last year, because the comic came out last year and it was so good that James Gunn said, we gotta make a movie out of this. You should read it. You just read it. It's I think it's actually, you know what, I'm gonna say this because I wasn't going to say this because I wanted people to buy it, but it is currently actually free to read on Disney Infinite. Not Disney Infinite. Why did I say Disney Infinite? DC Infinite. It is currently free to read. So go to, like, make an account. You have to make an account to read it, but, like, make an account. I'm pretty sure you don't have to subscribe. And even if you did, I'm pretty sure you've never used it before. So you can get a free trial and read more comics. You can read Aquaman Andromeda, because you've been trying. Yeah, you've been trying to figure out how to read it. Just download the DC Infinite app, start your free trial, and you can read it. But yeah. Also, there's probably they put free comics up every now and again, so you might find some stuff you're interested in. So yeah, this comic's so good. It's about Supergirl, obviously, but it's her 21st birthday, and she can't get drunk because, you know, super metabolism. So she goes to Earth with not Earth, but a planet with a red sun, which essentially drains Kryptonians' powers. They get their powers from yellow suns. So she goes there so she can drink. And then the other, like, main character series, who's essentially more the main character than Supergirl, actually. She's essentially the driving force of the story. Her father is murdered by some pirate who runs off with his gang, and she asks Supergirl to help her find him. And Supergirl doesn't want to do it at first, but eventually she decides to do it because her dog is poisoned. Crypto, the super dog, right. Who she brought with him, and, you know, he has superpowers too, but no, Red Sun took away their powers. He gets poisoned, and the only way to get the antidote is to go after the pirate because he poisoned the dog. So she eventually, you know, reluctantly joins her and goes off to help her out. And it's a big space adventure where they kind of reinterpret her origin story, where, unlike Superman, who was sent off when he was a kid and was raised in Kansas on Earth, she lived, like, there's two different versions of her origin, where she was older than him and, like, was a teenage or like around 12 years old, like a preteen or a teenager or early teenager when he was a baby, but was like essentially kind of like in suspended animation, so she never aged. So when she finally did come to Earth, she was still a teenager and he was a grown man. But she experienced Krypton. Like, she knows what it's like. She had a family and she watched it be destroyed and watched her friends and family die. And this show deals with that trauma. Another version for her origin is that, like, a piece of the planet kind of broke off with a city attached to it and like an artificial atmosphere around it, and she lived on that, and then that was destroyed, and she, like, went to Earth and lived with Superman. But usually it's that she was in suspended animation because the pod that she was in kind of, like, got trapped somewhere. And yeah, so she, like, experienced it. So this deals with, like, her trauma of having, like, lost her entire civilization. Like, she having experienced it and then lost it, whereas he never had it to begin with. Like, he doesn't know. He didn't know about it. So it's such a good story. I would definitely suggest reading it. It's beautiful, man. The art by I can never properly pronounce her name or their name. But it's spelled Bilquis. So I just say Billy Everly. So their art's real good. I would definitely suggest just Google Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow and look at the art. Gorgeous. That's what really pulled me in. Like, that's what always puts me into a comic, when the art's real good. It's also it's like 7 issues.
This is gorgeous. I like this art style a lot.
Yeah. But yeah, man, I'm excited. They also said they're going to be doing this thing that I'm so glad they're doing, and it's probably going to make them. Here's the thing. I'm extremely biased. I've hated most of their movies that DC have been making recently, but in terms of just characters and stories and comics and cartoons, I like DC leaps and bounds more than Marvel. It's just the truth. I like Marvel, don't get me wrong. But DC is just, I like them so much more. And it saddened me that they were making such bad movies with all of these. Honestly, I think that on average, they have better, more interesting characters overall.
Right.
And I'm excited to see them actually explore those characters, especially since he's not just focused on known characters like Wonder Woman, Superman, and Batman. He's giving characters like the Authority and Swamp Thing and Booster Gold and like the Creature Commandos, like their time in the sun. Like, since his beginning with superheroes, like James Gunn has been known to take unknown characters and make them famous, like the Guardians of the Galaxy. So like I'm excited to see the lesser known characters he'll bring up. For example, a more like famous character, but not as famous as he should be, that exists is like Green Arrow. Green Arrow is a really cool character. The weird thing about the Green Arrow show is that it's not a Green Arrow show. It's basically a Batman show, but Batman with a bow and arrow. It's weird because Green Arrow is more of a jokey character. Like he essentially is like he quips a lot like Spider-Man does, but he can be serious sometimes. But in the show, he's just dead serious Batman the whole time, and it sucks. But also, another thing to get wrong is that there's this really, really strange episode of Arrow where he wants to give everyone in Central City guns or Star City guns.
That's weird.
And that couldn't be far from the type of character Green Arrow is, because the type of character he is and has been for majority of his existence, he is the annoying woke person that the internet tells you exists everywhere. He's the extreme. Which side is that? The left or the right? I can never remember.
Left.
Yeah, he's an extreme lefty. He is the most extreme leftist on the planet Earth. That is the type of character he is. He's the person who grew up rich, grew up entitled, learns the error of his ways, and literally becomes Robin Hood. And usually he always eventually gives away all his money. Right. So like, that's the type of character he is, and I'm excited to see people learn more about that character because he's 100% going to get like a show or a movie at some point. And like Black Canary and him are like intrinsically tied together, and Black Canary is another amazing character. But anyway, moving on, I don't want to hark on this too much. I want to get to video games and wrap up because we've been recording. It hasn't been an hour 30 yet, surprisingly enough. But you got a meeting at 12.
Really? Yeah. And I gotta cook lunch for myself.
So yeah, let's move on to video games.
Ready.
So there's a slim chance, but there might be a Metal Gear Rising 2 in development.
Really?
Because Metal Gear, this is very random, but there's gonna be a 10-year event for Metal Gear Rising.
Huh.
Because it came out in 2012.
Right.
Or 2013 maybe. And the anniversary is coming up. And the Raiden's English voice actor has been teasing it a little bit. And I'm not sure. Here's the thing. It could just 100% be a remaster.
Right.
Which, honestly, perfectly fine. Maybe if the remaster does really well, they do decide to make a sequel. Or it could be a remake. It could be one of those. Either way, I would be happy.
Right.
But first and foremost, I want a Metal Gear Rising 2. Raiden is my favorite Metal Gear character. In general, I want another Metal Gear Rising. Have you played Metal Gear Rising? It's hack and slash right platinum. I feel like you should check it out.
I played a little bit of it, not much.
It's real good. I like it a lot. It's became famous because of the memes, which is like memes and Metal Gear are funny because, and I'm not joking, a big part of the way like the story of Metal Gear involves meme, but not memes in the way that we know them. Like memes essentially is being like information that are passed down through generations. That's like the literal definition of memes, but memes nowadays essentially means jokes.
Right.
And there are like so many times in Metal Gear Solid where they talk about memes.
I've seen the clip.
And it's really funny. But also the main villain says "Make America Great Again" in 2013, way before Donald Trump does. So I'm trying to think, was Donald Trump or somebody out there saying "Make America Great Again" before Donald Trump, which would make sense because he's a thief. But also, or did he just like somehow see a meme from this game and make that part of his election campaign?
I highly doubt it.
Yeah, me too. But it would be funny if he did.
It would be.
Redfall. I sent you a trailer for it. Did you check it out?
I did. That game. I'm excited for it. I'm so excited.
So that game's interesting. Do you have a PC?
I do have a PC. Yeah.
Fantastic, because it's on like Xbox, so you can play Xbox games. But because I do need some people to play it with me. I think because it's like 4-player co-op. But yeah, Redfall.
It reminds me of Left 4 Dead.
Yeah, so you checked out some gameplay too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was hoping you would, because I just sent you the CGI trailer. Because the CGI trailer, it's made by the same developers that made Prey. It's made by the same like studio that made Prey and Dishonored, but they're split into 2 separate teams. Like the whole team worked together to make the very first Dishonored, but they split off, and like half of them worked on Dishonored 2, and the other half worked on Prey, and the half that worked on Dishonored 2 also made Deathloop.
Right.
But this is the Prey studio, Arcane Austin, that made Redfall, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm not as interested in it as I once was, because it's more like it doesn't seem as much of an immersive sim as their previous games. It's just like it's a straightforward action game, and the stealth parts are limited. Whereas every other game, I feel like you really have a choice of how to tackle situations in terms of stealth. And this one, it feels like it's limited. But at the same time, I'm still excited. It still looks good. It still looks like it's going to be fun. And it's going to be on Game Pass. So I have, actually my subscription's about to run out. My 6-month subscription's about to run out. But I'm going to resubscribe it was 3 months for either. I'm going to try to resubscribe for a year subscription. But I can't find a year subscription anywhere. So I think I'm just going to do 6 months. But either way, I'm gonna have Game Pass when it comes out.
Yeah, I gotta resubscribe to my Game Pass too. It ran out and I had no clue.
So what makes it easy for me to subscribe to Game Pass for so long is because, one, I'm gonna use it, but secondly, I share my account, not my account, but my account. Excuse me, I'm stuttering. My account, and I gave my second account to my little brother, and I gave him my old Xbox, and I linked those accounts so we share Game Pass, and he definitely plays Game Pass way more than I do, so it's still getting use. So I feel like it's worth paying that much money. For you, it might not be worth paying for like a 6-month subscription if you're not using it that much. But because I know he's using it all the time and I use it more than often enough to warrant it, I find it worth paying like for a 6-month subscription. But
that's real.
Xbox is the way to subscribe to Xbox for 6 months is strange. Because for Game Pass specifically, because there is no option, which is very strange. Every other subscription service, whether it's for movies or games, has this, where there's just an option for you to go 3 months, 6 months, 1 year. Xbox doesn't have that for Game Pass. You can only subscribe for a month. If you want to subscribe to Game Pass for 3 months, 6 months, or a year, you have to buy Xbox games with gold for that period of time, redeem the code, then subscribe to Game Pass. It has to be you have to let your Game Pass expire, then subscribe to games with gold for however long. I'm going to do 6 months, and then subscribe to Game Pass. So it would cost, you'll get it for that entire period of time, plus I think an extra month, because you'll have to pay for it, because it'll add the price of that subscription, plus you have to actually still pay for that Game Pass. It's a weird process, and I don't understand why they don't just add it's probably not as easy as I'm making it seem, but every other subscription service does it. So no matter how hard it is, you should just do it for convenience, so people will subscribe to your service for long periods of time. Exactly. PlayStation says you subscribe to PlayStation Plus for a year. Let us subscribe to Game Pass for a year, Xbox. Please. I want to subscribe.
I want to pay for your services, right?
But let's talk about Hi-Fi Rush. So I played the first hour last night. It's actually a really short game. It's only 6 hours long.
Really?
So I'm probably I don't know how long it's gonna take to play it, because honestly, it's fun, but it's not so fun that I'm itching to play it every day. But it is a rhythm action game, similar to have you heard of Metal Hellsinger?
I have.
The rhythm Doom yeah, because I know you're into rhythm games and you're into action games. So This is a rhythm action game. I feel like this is right up your alley. It's made by Tango Gameworks, which is weirdly enough, this is the same developer that made The Evil Within 1 and 2. As well as Tokyo something. That horror game that takes place in Tokyo. I forget what it's called.
I know what you're talking about, but I can't remember.
I can't remember what it's called either.
I can look.
But yeah, I still need to play The Evil Within 2. I like the first one a lot. But it gives off kind of like Sunset Overdrive vibes with how colorful it is and the way the characters are designed. But it also has that 3D with 2D textures and effects design that we all love so much.
Oh yeah.
Visually, it's very interesting. Story-wise, it's okay. Like, honestly, I'm not sure I'm gonna finish it. It's not super up my alley. And I knew that once they said it was a rhythm game, I was like, oh god. Like, rhythm games are cool and all, but they're not really my jam. But I started playing, and I'm like, and I got into it. I was like, okay, I got into the rhythm, bumped my head to the music. I got it. I understood it. I understand how to play it. But it's not particularly fun to me, so I might just drop it. But it might interest you. It might be worth checking out.
Oh yeah.
So whenever
I've been meaning to.
Yeah, so whenever you subscribe to Game Pass, it's on there.
Yeah.
So last but not least, before we wrap things up, Dead Space. The perfect remake. This game has made me it strengthens how much I love video games. I'm not joking. This game, I have to play it a couple more times before I like make a true decision, but it has the potential to be one of my very favorite games ever. Oh my god, it's so good. It's ridiculously good. It hits this very, very good balance between horror and action that the only other game to do this is Resident Evil 2, in my opinion, where at the beginning it's really scary because it's really dark all the time, and the only light you have to illuminate things are the flashlight from your gun that you can only see when you're aiming. So you have to like walk around aiming a lot of the time, but like eventually you get enough weapons and enough upgrades to where you feel powerful and aren't as scared, but are still just scared enough that I love it. But also, the game is built with functions where music cues, enemy attacks, and all of that are randomized in certain places. There are places where it's scripted, but there are places where it's randomized so that you will get scared, so that they can like throw you off your game. Like they're like, okay, you haven't been attacked by an enemy in a while. Rather than send an enemy after you, we're gonna play the enemy attacking you music to get your heart pumping, and you will also hear the character's heart pumping, and then after you feel like you're safe again, monster jumps out the vent.
That is diabolical, but I love it.
They are evil, and I love it. They want you to have a heart attack. It's so good. Like every time I booted it back up, I had to re-immerse myself in the situation. Because for the first like 10 minutes, I would be as scared as I was the first time I played it. And then I'll have to like get reacclimated to the environment and be like, okay, I'm not as scared anymore. Now I'm used to it. If something bursts out of it, I'll just shoot it in the face. But, well, not the face, because in this game you have to shoot off the limbs. Shooting them in the face does absolutely nothing.
That's interesting. You don't see that much.
Yeah, every game, like every weapon is built to kind of dismember them, or like there's a system where like you see how much damage you're doing visually because you slowly essentially strip off layers of their body, like the skin, the fat, the muscle, the bone. It's visually incredible. It's so good. So I'm pretty sure I told you this, but my experience with Dead Space is that there was a demo of Dead Space back when, demos existed.
Demos were a thing, right?
Specifically demos that came with a disc. I had like a Godfather game, Godfather 2, that came out in 2008, but I got this around like 2011. And it came with the first Dead Space as a demo. And I played that demo like dozens of times when I was a kid, and I loved it, but I never played the game in full. So when I heard it was getting remade, I was like, finally, I get to play this game that people love. Like, it's a seminal survival horror game up there with like Resident Evil 4, which is considered by a lot of people one of the greatest games of all time. And it's also getting a remake that comes out in January, February, March. Next month. Wild. I think it comes out March 24th, which makes me upset. Why does it have to come out at the end of the month? Come out earlier, game. I'm so excited for that game.
March being next month is crazy, by the way.
Yeah, March being next month as well. I'm glad they pushed back Dead Island 2. It was supposed to come out this month, but it gives me more time to finish the first game with my brother, but also to play other games. But this month, nothing's coming out now, which is kind of sad, but it also gives me room to finish Batman and all the other games that I bought recently because they were discounted. Like, what is it? I got
Aiara Automata.
Yeah, you're right. I have Nier. I forgot about that.
I'm gonna push you to play it until you play it. I
legit forgot about that. It's still
you're real.
It's still in the plastic.
Hey, yo, I fully believe that it's gonna be the third game to make you cry.
Actually, I don't think it's still in the plastic because I wanted to make sure the disc was in there, so I took it out. But if I wasn't the type of person, it would still be in a plastic. Because you know what? I take it back. It might still be in a plastic. I would have to go check. But
I was gonna say you better make sure that disc is still in there.
But yeah, this space is incredible. This is the first game I'm actively playing. I finished it. I beat the game, but it's the first game I actively played the entirety game with headphones on, because I have a pair of headphones that are really nice. The headphones I'm using right now that sound amazing. And PlayStation 5 has this thing called 3D audio, which I'm sure you've heard because they've been advertising the hell out of it back when the PlayStation 5 was first coming out. And it sounds like a gimmick. It's not. Just like the haptic feedback isn't a gimmick because it feels amazing. This is not a gimmick. Like, if something's above you, it sounds like it's above you. If it's on your left, it sounds like it's on your left. If it's behind you, it sounds like it's behind you. And it makes the game so much more immersive. Ooh. I'm going to be playing horror games with headphones on forever.
Speaking of horror games, I've been really, I don't know why, but like I'm in like my Five Nights at Freddy's era right now. So I've been watching a whole bunch of like video essays and stuff and like replaying the games. And I never really, like, I was kind of into the fan base growing up, like when the games were coming out, but I wasn't really this big into them. But hearing like people talk about them and like how passionate they get, I don't know, it's really interesting.
Yeah, it's an interesting game franchise.
Yeah, I just wish that Purity Breach didn't suck. It had so much potential, and then
the thing about the game, I think that when I see it, again, I'm not the biggest Five Nights at Freddy person, but to me, it's like, it's a really good game. The problem is it was unfinished. It literally was unfinished.
Yeah, it's like, it's a good game. It's just not a good FNAF game.
No, I think it's a good fun. I was about to say Final Fantasy. I think it's a good Five Nights at Freddy's game. I just think that it's unfinished. It's literally just unfinished. There were elements at the very end where they put you in a situation where I think they like made some changes now, but where you can't go back and do everything without you have to have one save or something like that. And like there's no option to change that. And I'm like, I think they might have added something to change it now because people hated it. But that was stupid. That sounds like something you add on a harder difficulty for people who want more of a challenge, not people playing the game for the first time and who just want to have fun.
Right.
It was ridiculous. It was a ridiculous way to go about that. For the most part, though, the game was fun to watch people play.
Yeah, it's definitely a fun game to watch people play.
It had a very interesting story.
Yeah.
I'm just personally not a fan of horror games where you just run and hide.
Yeah, I think that's why I didn't like Security Breach so much. I like how cramped the original Five Nights at Freddy's games were, where it's like, it's just you and the room and the monsters, and that's it. Like, nothing, no big sprawling open areas or anything like that. It's like, I like the claustrophobic feel of them, and I think that's why I didn't enjoy Security Breach as much.
Yeah, I think it makes sense that they would expand like that. But, yeah, that's about all I got.
Yep. I don't have anything. I was going to talk about Ultra Kill, but I just like that game, and I want the third act to come out and soon.
What is Ultra Kill?
Ultra Kill is an FPS game by New Blood Studios that I think you would really like. If you like Doom, you'll like Ultra Kill. It's fast paced and definitely a very boomer shooter. And it's, how do I explain the story of Ultra Kill, because it doesn't really have one. You play as a robot, but it has like vampiric urges. Like, that's how they power themselves, through blood. And you're running through the layers of hell, killing stuff. And that's the story.
I'm not the biggest fan of the art style, but I could see that game being interesting if it had art style I liked more.
Yeah, that's real. I like it because of how fast paced and just absolutely insane it is to watch people play, and like just the everything behind it is absolutely insane.
Yeah, I think there just needs to be more Doom shooters.
Oh, absolutely. There's another one that I can't remember the name of. It's like, it combines that like boomer shooter aesthetic with roguelike elements. What is it called? Hold on.
I was gonna say, that's what Metroid should do.
Nightmare Reaper. That's what that game is called. You should play that also. It's a good
Nightmare
game.
Reaper.
It's still in early access because it's not finished, but it's a roguelike FPS, which is insane.
Yeah, I think that Metroid should just make like a Metroid Prime. I feel like should just be like Doom.
Yeah.
Too bad it's not. But yeah, that's all we got. So, I'm Dijon. Matt's below me. You'll see Aiara and Tia's at below Aiara, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel if you want to see more storytelling content, and to click the notification bell so that you're notified when we post. Peace.
Yeah.
I keep